Hello everybody, Revolution. This is your boy Brother Leonard, the Truth Seeker, and I'm coming to you with a few minutes of truth, and hopefully this will be a few minutes. I know I've been doing a lot of reading and researching, not necessarily a lot of in-depth researching, but been reading a lot of comments, reading a lot of articles, reading a lot of stuff on the reason why you clicked on this Dr. Umar Johnson cat. And I floated out a theory in social media, and I'm going to put it on the video so that we can discuss it a little bit further. Now, typically I deal with preachers and basically their accountability, but I do find it cool that the same principles that I use to hold preachers accountable are actually being used and executed on the other side to hold other individuals, leadership that seems to be in the leadership positions, accountable. I applaud that. That's, to me, is a good thing. You know, we should be able to hold each other accountable whenever we recognize some things. And this is one of the issues where, for Dr. Umar Johnson, for many of you who may not be aware, he's a school psychologist, big on the YouTube on this thing, and basically wants to build a school for black children, for black boys. And very controversial dude. Says a lot of controversial statements. Recently, he stood up against interracial relationships in a very strong way, and he's also done a lot of stuff online, said a lot of things online that me as a person I don't particularly agree with. There are some things that he says that I do agree with. Other things that he says I really don't. You know, interracial relationships, I really could care less. His thoughts on gay folk, I could really care less. His thoughts on, certain thoughts within the black community of collectivism, collectivism and things like that, I'm kind of for. There are some other comments that made about, the relationship of black America and white supremacy. I actually agree with. So he has, some things where people agree, some things where people disagree. Now, a lot of his scrutiny, though, is because of not necessarily his rhetoric, but his reactions to criticism. And not only just his reactions to criticism, but in how he responds to certain things causes many people to have issues with him, which brings up accountability and causes people to go ahead and to look into certain things. One of the things that was being questioned about him, that I find it particularly interesting for this channel, is the fact that his schooling. And last week, I was very critical of another cat in reference to her schooling, or lack thereof. So I find it, encompassing that I should weigh in on this, and I've given about a week or so. I've watched a lot of videos and I've seen a lot of things. I just wanted to throw this out into discussion that I've put out there on Facebook. I mean, on Facebook and Twitter and things like that. Because when I read there's an article on The Root. The title of the article, you can look it up for yourself. We fact-checked Umar Johnson's Hotep tantrum with Roland Martin because someone had to. Now, I do have issues with how the interview on Roland Martin's show was handled. I think, in all honesty, I think Roland asked the right questions. I think Roland did his job to a point. Okay. However, his panelists, I think, really did, and I think that there was no real need for the panelists in that discussion. Okay. You know, there wasn't any need for it, and the people that they had, the people who were watching knew who Umar was, and knew who Roland was, but didn't know who these cats were. All right, and they can't, you know, you can't be looking. They really didn't come off as being credible to offering criticism to Dr. Johnson. Okay, so, but that's where all this, well, the stuff started up on the Breakfast Club, and he was wilding out up there. All right, and then it went, and then to respond to some of the criticism from the Breakfast Club, came to this Roland Martin interview on his show on TV One, News One now, or whatever it's called. And then The Root wrote this article, plus there's been other videos, other articles written on this whole entire thing. So trust me, by the time that I'm weighed in on this, I have been late to the party. But I do want to highlight some things in this Root article that I'm going to read to you. I'm going to highlight some things out of this Root article to pull out of it so that we can get some understanding on how I see things happen and how I relate it to not only church, but also how public relations work. Okay. All right. So basically they asked a question, is he a doctor? I'm going to read some of these things. I'm going to read some paragraphs out of here so that you can get some understanding on this. You can find this on theroot.com. I will have a link to this article in the description for you to look up on your own after you finish this video. All right, I'm going to just start at halfway down. In the section it says, but is he a doctor? Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump to this. The school Johnson claims he attended for his doctorate, the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, also participates in the National Student Clearinghouse, but you know, National Clearinghouse. It could not verify a degree under any variation of the name Umar Abdul Johnson or Johnson's birth name, Jermaine Shoemaker. Every doctoral candidate must submit a dissertation, and PCOM, which is short for Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, makes its students dissertations available online. Now, make sure you know this. PCOM makes its students dissertations available online. When we look through the university's archives, we found a link to Umar Johnson's dissertation, the relationship between self-concept and academic achievement in African American middle school students, a correlational study, which indicates that Johnson indeed submitted a thesis in the PCOM Doctor of Psychology program, but unlike other dissertations, Johnson's was not available for download. We then looked at the graduation program for 2010, the year that Johnson's dissertation was submitted. He was not listed on the commencement program, even though he appears in the program as a doctoral candidate. In fact, we could not find evidence of that Johnson graduated from PCOM. Mysteriously, a PDF file of the program from every commencement exercise at Philadelphia from PCOM is available online, except for the year that Johnson supposedly graduated. In addition, 99% of the students who receive doctorates from PCOM have their dissertations available online, but Johnson's is not. Okay, PCOM also posts videos of the graduation ceremonies online. The school has cataloged them on a YouTube in a playlist, except someone submitted a copyright infringement claim only for the graduation ceremony that took place the year that Umar Johnson supposedly graduated. All right, the fact that, and I'm going to go ahead and read this, and this is where we're going to go from here. The fact that Johnson's dissertation, commencement program, graduation ceremony, and every other piece of documentation that would prove he graduated from PCOM with a doctorate have apparently disappeared from the internet is the biggest coincidence in history, or he just may not have his doctoral degree. Okay. Now, while I was reading that segment, the way that this writer, I'm not, and you could look his name up. I'll find it real quick. Michael Harriot, or Harriot, something like that. He's coming from a perspective. Okay, his perspective is not necessarily in favor of Dr. Johnson. Okay, cool, that's cool. But as you're reading that, one would be led to believe that Umar did not in fact graduate from PCOM. Now, here's the problem that I'm having with this situation. And here's the questions that need to be asked. Okay. We have proof. The one thing that we do have proof of is that there is a link, and I found the link to his dissertation on the PCOM website. PCOM website. But it only has the abstract. Also, but it does have 3 advisors that's been listed. That is his advisors. I don't remember the names. All I know is that 2 of the 3 were definitely on staff. Were definitely on staff at that time at PCOM. Okay. The third one, the reason why I don't necessarily know if he was on staff or not was because he was not listed in the directory, because he has passed away. Okay. And there's probably a and I can't speak to this specifically, but there was probably a previous relationship with Umar and this other doctor from his days when he attended Millersville University, because that was his last listing of working, and that was also cited in the obituary. But whether he had a relationship with PCOM or not, I wasn't able to verify that. Okay, so PCOM puts out everybody's dissertation but Johnson's. PCOM also has a program. Now, if the PDF was there, if the PDF wasn't there, the one thing I do question is, how did you know or look at the graduation program? Because the program, I'm not sure if they had, unless they went to Philadelphia and saw the stuff in the library. And I'm not sure that graduation programs are kept in the library, the physical copy. But the PDF, you said wasn't there, but you said that you looked into it. I have a question about that. I have a question about that within the article, okay? Within the article. So you don't see, the PDF is gone, but somehow you saw the program. So are you saying that you actually saw the physical program? Or you didn't find the program, and then you said that his name is not listed in the program that you didn't find? Okay? I have a problem with that. That's a good question for me to ask the writer of this article. All right? So now you don't have the PDF from PCOM online. Also, the video that's on PCOM's YouTube page has been marked with a copyright infringement. So why does this have to believe that it has to be a coincidence, or he didn't? How can you get this conclusion that he didn't get a doctoral degree, or that it's just a coincidence that all these things happen, as if Dr. Johnson actually is in control of this situation? First of all, let's answer this question. Let's answer these questions. Within all this stuff, who makes the dissertations available online? Number one. Who also makes available online the programs? Who also owns the YouTube channel where the graduation ceremonies are categorized? All those instances are not in the control of Umar Johnson. And they're not in the control of anybody trying to say that Umar is hacking into something. PCOM, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, owns that stuff. Owns the intellectual properties of that website. So everything of content on that website comes from them. Now, in the past, like since that time, and even before then, Umar has been a very controversial figure. He said a lot of stuff that could get people upset. Now, everyone thinks that when I say this, that, no, come on, schools couldn't do this. They couldn't get away with this. They would get in trouble and everything like that. Look, I believe that he earned his doctorate. I believe it. And not to say that I'm going to try, like, really trying to prove it. I believe he earned his doctorate. But I also believe that the school itself, whether it was a donor or whatever, whoever it was, whether it's the president of the school, they've took the steps. I believe that they took the steps to protect their image from a rogue student who they feel does not merit their validation, anymore, in a way. Now, you can say, well, how do schools do this? Why would they do this? When they get in trouble, well, they could. But I believe that they tried to protect themselves by just leaving up the abstract on their website. Because they could have totally took that out. But they left the abstract there, knowing that he was a student. And I think that they're doing whatever it is legally possible so that they can avoid the fight. Now, they can still have the fight on their hands, but the burden of proof now has shifted from them to Dr. Johnson, of whether or not he received his doctoral degree there from PCOM. They put it on him. Now, in order for Johnson to put the burden of proof back onto PCOM, he got to file a lawsuit. And PCOM, being at their college, and they have the resources to really go through litigation that Dr. Johnson may not have. Okay? But this is actually, to me, a PR move that PCOM has done in order to protect its image. Now, and I'm going to close on this. Roughly about 4 or 5 years ago, another Pennsylvania University got in a lot of trouble when a particular coach of Joe Paterno was hiding the fact of not only Joe Paterno, but about 3 or 4 other cats at Penn State was hiding the fact that they had an assistant coach that was taking children and molesting and raping children on campus there in State College. Okay? This coach was raping and molesting children and had been doing it, to their knowledge, for about 20 years. And when it came to light, you begin to see how Joe Paterno, the athletic director, the vice chancellor, and the president of the university at that time all were coordinated effort of hiding that from the public and trying to get Jerry Sandusky in situations where they can get this away from them. That is the largest school in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay? And you mean to tell me that they went, yes, because they get a lot of money from football. Okay, granted, basically the schools run off of their football program. Let's get it right. Okay, but you mean to tell me, and you see schools all over. We can even look right now. Art Biles, head coach at Baylor at one time, was hiding the fact that he had half his football team raping almost every girl on campus. Baptist College down there in Texas, Baylor. There are colleges all across this country that when stuff happens on their campus, or when folk do stuff, that they do things to try to hide information that would be damaging to their school. Johnson sits up there and blames white supremacy and all those white folk that's sitting up there in that school, sitting up there looking at this Negro like, whoa, what was you saying? And you mean to tell me that they could, all that stuff PCOM controls, but yet y'all want to say it's a coincidence? It's no coincidence, people. Now, this is flat out a defense of Umar Johnson in this instance. A lot of the other stuff that Umar Johnson does, and I want to make sure that this gets out there from me, you know, because when people look at it, you're going to look at the first part, you're going to see the defense, but I hope that you stuck through to get to this part. Okay? Now, Dr. Johnson, you can't get off the hook on these things. Okay? Yes, you may have got your doctorate from PCOM. Okay, your educational credentials may be legit. You may be a school psychologist, which is cool. But the lack of transparency that you're having when it comes to this building of this school. Now, granted, I know that you only received $700,000, and it's probably going to take $4 to $5 million to actually do the vision that you want to do, and I understand that, but that's a lot of money from a lot of poor folk, you know, that you've gotten the trust of, and the lack of transparency that is going on with that situation. I really can't speak to the depths of it, but if there's a lack of transparency going on with that, you need to be held accountable for that. The way that you sit up there and say that a black man needs to be with a black woman, but yet every opportunity that you have with these black women, you take the time to actually objectify and denigrate, you need to be held accountable for that, fam. and for, you know, and within your group and how you handle criticism amongst people. You know, you got to be held accountable for this stuff. So that's all a part of it. Your accountability here with this is not just proving that you're, you know, that you're a descendant of Frederick Douglass. Okay, whatever. Okay, cool. Name dropping family. That's fine. That's great. I'm glad that you know that. But you also need to be able to understand that people are critical because of the voice that you carry. But you got to stop doing stuff, and I was about ready to cuss, but you got to stop doing stuff that makes people sit up there and criticize you when you give them so much for them to criticize over you. All right, you know, that's $700,000, fam, for real. You need to come correct on that, man. You need to come correct on that. And that's something that you don't need to just sit back there and let this thing go away like, you know, like it's going to disappear. Nah, man. That's going to affect how your future goes on, because you need to show some sort of accountability. And if you spent that money, you need to come clean and say you spent that money and what you spent it on. You need to do that. You know, because then for this, all those preachers that you talk about in your videos, all those preachers that you talk about in your videos about how they robbing the community, how they robbing the black community and all this other stuff, those same folk, you did the same exact thing as them. If that's what happened, you doing the same exact stuff as those guys. You need to come accountable, be accountable for that. All right? Now, I'm just wanted to point out that thing about the Root article, and how they jump to a conclusion just as much as the other option that they should have put the other option in. They didn't put this option in, the option that I'm talking about. They should have put that in the article. But because of the agenda that they have against Dr. Johnson, then it gets kind of tainted. Trust me, later on this week, I'm going to talk to you about how we get information and how we process information and understand where the slants is and everything like that. That's coming on the live stream this coming Thursday, hopefully, unless something else happens. But this coming Thursday between 8 o'clock, well, between 7 and 10, between 7 and 10 on Thursday. Look for the live stream on this channel. And with all that, people, like I start and begin every show, listen, this revolution. The revolution is televised because it's here right on this channel here on YouTube. All right, revolution, everybody. Take care and God bless.